strong.
Hey, how's it going? Ben here. I wanted to talk today about some of the reasons why I moved out to Thailand and maybe share some of my experiences with you. I've been thinking a lot about this recently. I'm starting a podcast soon, hopefully this month, with a good friend of mine. It's going to be called the Strange Land Podcast, and we're going to be talking about the challenges and what's the rewards for living in a different country, and would we recommend it. And hopefully we're going to start interviewing some of our friends who are also doing similar things, and I'm pretty excited about it. So I thought I would maybe think about that a little bit and try and come up with my reasons, and I thought I could share some of them with you today. So I think one of the earliest memories I have of kind of coming to the idea that I would move abroad was actually when I was in college. I had a meeting, or like we had a class sort of meeting with someone from one of the universities, or I'm not sure if she was from the student loans company. It's actually a little bit frustrating looking back, but basically she told us that we should go to university and we shouldn't worry about the student loans because we should just go and work abroad and we wouldn't have to pay our student loans back. And I remember most of the class kind of being young students thinking, oh yeah, that would be great, I'd just get my loans, go to university and move abroad. Now, that's not true, as I later found out, having lived in Thailand for a little bit with student loans. If you are from England like myself, you do have to pay back your student loans, obviously. There is a different bracket though, so you may find yourself paying more than you expected you would, because if you're in the UK and you were earning the kind of wage you're earning here, you definitely wouldn't be paying back your loan if you're on the same repayment structure as I am, which is kind of bracketed. However, they have different brackets for different countries. So if you do move to Thailand, there's a lower bracket, so the amount you have to earn is much lower here than the amount you have to earn in the UK to start making your repayments. But yeah, it's quite reasonable. I think you have to be earning over 30,000 baht, which is about 1,000 British pounds per month before you start making your repayments. And even then, it's manageable. But you must let the student loans company know that you are working abroad, because I think I've known a few people who have had issues, and it's not something you necessarily think of. So you just move, and then kind of you're not really thinking about that. You're thinking, oh, I'm in a lower bracket, I don't need to make the repayments, and I think it's automatic when you're in the UK and you're paying your national insurance. The student loans company is kind of kept to breath and understands what you're earning and where you're up to. When you move abroad, you do have to send documents. You have to send like your monthly salary and like a contract to prove how much you're earning and where you are. So that's something that I would off the bat recommend. And it's kind of funny that was such a sort of that class, that meeting is still fresh in my mind, and it's funny that it kind of came back to bite me a little bit. As soon as I started getting the letters, I did inform them where I was and what I was earning. And at first I was under the bracket, so I didn't need to pay them back when I was earning less than 30,000 baht. But now, since I've been earning a little bit more, I have been starting to make some repayments. So yeah, if you're in university, if you're in college, if you're in university, it's a bit late. But if you're in college and someone tells you, there's kind of this idea that seems to float about in the UK that it's like, you can just move abroad and you don't have to repayment. That's not true. And if you don't update your student loans, and if you don't let them know where you are, then you'll get some pretty nasty letters and emails in the post. So be warned. But yeah, that's one of the earliest kind of points. I distinctly remember being in that class and thinking, like, I would like to move abroad. I travelled when I was younger. I'd been to places like Berlin, Barcelona in Europe, and I think my plan even before that a little bit had been to finish college and just move to Spain or move to Germany for a few years. That really appealed to me. I love Berlin, I love Barcelona, so I was thinking yeah, I think around my A-levels time were the first thoughts I had of moving to a different country. Long story short, I graduated from uni. I had some credit card debt, I'm sure a lot of you do as well, and I realised I couldn't really just move to Berlin or Barcelona. I didn't have any money, so I found a job. I started working in a pub, and I was working there for around a year, and my plan kind of changed. So first I paid back my credit card debt, and then I started to save as much as I could. I moved back home with my parents, and at this time I was desperate to figure something out. I was desperate to move out somewhere, go to a different country, go travelling, do whatever. I really wanted to go and explore. It was quite a frustrating time in my life looking back. And yeah, I kind of had this idea that I would buy a van. I wanted to buy a van. I wanted to convert it into a camper van. I've seen tons of like Instagram and Facebook posts about people who transfer vans into campers and go driving around Europe. So this was my plan. I was like, oh yeah, I'll save up some money, I'll buy a van, and I'd have a place to stay or just go off at the weekends, and I could get out of my mum and dad's house and go and travel. So that was my plan. The reasons why I didn't do that, I think, were by the time I had enough to buy a van, I then would have needed more money to then start work. I'm not really the most handy person, so a lot of the things I probably need to do, I don't know if I could have done myself. It would have been a long learning curve, and I think by the time I had the van livable, it might have been 2 or 3 years perhaps, and I imagine it would have been a lot of money. Also, there didn't seem to be anything next after that. I mean, I was like, oh, well, what would I actually do? So I could go and drive around for a few months until I ran out of money, and then I'd probably have to come home and carry on working. So it didn't seem a very sustainable plan. I still would love to one day in the future, convert a van and go travelling around Europe, because there's a lot of places I'd like to see, but I guess I'll leave that till later in life perhaps, when I have a bit more of the money and a bit more time to do that. But yeah. So yeah, back to this pub. So I was working at a pub, and funnily enough, it was a sort of traditional British pub with a restaurant, and the restaurant served Thai food, and all the staff in the kitchen were Thai. So I was working with some Thai people at work, and this was way before this. I still didn't have the idea of going to Thailand, but I do think that did sort of influence me a little bit. The relationships I had with the staff and the food here in this pub. After around 1 year of working somewhere between part-time and full-time at this pub, I was really frustrated, really ready to go. There were lots of nights I would come home, just really upset. Often the regulars would give me a lot of stick all night, so I kind of be stood behind the bar until the early hours, getting stick. I mean, lots of it was good nature, some of it wasn't. The work was difficult, it was long hours, there wasn't really any progression. I wanted to move away, and I still hadn't quite figured out what I could do, which is when I found online I was pretty much qualified to teach as an English tutor in different countries. I needed a university degree, which I already had, and did need to do a TEFL certificate, so some teaching English as a foreign language. There's a few different types of certificates you can get for that. And yeah, I found an agency, which turned out to be a very bad idea, but maybe that's something I'll get into in a different episode. But yeah, I found an agency, and I saw that I was eligible to apply for one of these programs to go and teach in a different country. And this was I remember it being at 2 in the morning, so it was one of these days I was coming home from work really frustrated and upset, and I just found this thing, and the choices were China, Vietnam or Thailand. So this agency could get me a job in those 3 countries at that time, and I didn't fancy China so much. I really liked the idea of Thailand. I really liked the idea of Vietnam as well. I'd always wanted to go to Vietnam. The reason why I chose Thailand was because the wage was a little bit higher. Since moving here, and I've actually been to Vietnam, not for too long, but I've been over there now, and that was actually a little bit flawed in my thinking, because Vietnam's a much cheaper place to live. So the wage over there, if it was the same, you probably have a bit more money to spend actually. So yeah, that's definitely something to think about if you are considering moving abroad and looking at different options. It's not enough to just compare the prices really with the wages, because you need to consider the cost of living, obviously. But yeah, not that obvious to me back then. So yeah, I chose Thailand. I applied. I quit my job at the pub because I needed to get TEFL qualified as quickly as possible. And yeah, after I'd passed my TEFL course, it just became like a matter of waiting, which was a bit of a strange time, I guess, in my life. I was kind of half shitting myself, half really excited. I was sort of frailing about, not really knowing what to do, trying to make plans, trying to learn a few Thai words, and try to research what I'd actually be doing. And I spent about a month. I bought a camera, thought I was going to become a travel photographer. That didn't pan out. I thought I would only be going there for 6 months and then maybe move to a different country. That didn't happen. And yeah, I've been here since. So 3 years later, I guess I'm still here. So yeah, that's the reason why I moved out. I was really frustrated. I wanted to move out. I wanted to live out of my home. I had a house with some friends at one point in my life, but I made better wages. I made more money living in the UK and working in a pub than I do as a teacher in Thailand. But housing is so expensive. I couldn't afford my own house when I was living. When I was living in a house, I had a house in a pretty rough area where there were break-ins, attempted break-ins in our house, and actual break-ins to our neighbours. It was in a pretty rough area. It wasn't a particularly nice house. There was a mice problem and stuff like that. It was very expensive, so it took up pretty much all of my wages, just my house. Whereas in Thailand, I made less money, but I could afford a much better accommodation for much less, even percentage-wise, compared to the different wages, which is pretty interesting. One of the reasons why I've stayed, to be honest. And I wanted to tell you all this because maybe you're in that position. Maybe you're looking for something new and exciting to do. Maybe maybe you're a little frustrated with your circumstances. Maybe you live in a country that's very expensive to live. Maybe you're a little bit bored and want to see the world. And if you work in a different country, which there are opportunities to do, then you get kind of this thrill of travel, and you don't have to just spend the money. You can kind of make a living while traveling, which is something I was super interested in doing. But yeah, let me know what you think. I'd love to hear any of your experiences. If you have lived abroad, then please let me know. Drop a comment, because I'd love to see what your experiences are. Where did you go? How did you find it? Would you recommend it to a friend? I think this has been a very rewarding experience for me. The person who left the UK is very different from the person who I am today in many respects. I think it has been very character building and a worthwhile experience. So yeah, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please like the video and let me know, because I'm not sure if you want to hear about these kind of things, but I enjoy talking about it. So hopefully I'll see you next time, and I will let you know when the podcast comes out, when we'll be going into more detail with my friend. Should be soon. So yeah, thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.